Well, it's quite possible. After all, if the NATO countries were really thinking about carrying out some kind of intervention to assist the rebels against Assad's regime, one of the first things they'd want to do is to knock out Syria's air force and air defenses. So some kind of probing flight testing Syrian radar, Syrian responses may be possible. Of course, it's also possible that it's a tragic mishap that the plane simply found itself off course in Syrian waters, or for that matter, that the Syrians were over anxious to protect their airspace and a Turkish plane has been struck outside their waters. We don't know exactly the location yet. It could well be, yes. You see, one way of getting around the UN embargo by Russia and China on intervention in Syria is to make it into an international crisis. So long as the crisis is primarily inside Syria, then the classic argument for international intervention that a global crisis situation is spreading outside the borders of the country concerned can't really be made. If you, however, have an international crisis, then perhaps you can find a way of pressuring Russia and China to agree to action. Or you may even say the NATO countries have to go to the aid of their ally. Of course, we don't know yet exactly the circumstances. It may be an incident that can be resolved diplomatically without any problem. But of course, it comes at such a tense time that even if nobody has prepared this incident, it's likely to take on a life of its own in terms of the crisis management of the Syrian crisis, but also of the NATO countries' relations with the rebels against Assad. Well, it could act as a trigger to further pressure on Syria by NATO. On the other hand, it could also be a sign that the idea that you could have an easy bombing campaign over Syria as you had against Libya won't be quite so clear-cut. Maybe the hawks might begin to think that the risks of a NATO air campaign to help the rebels have too many risks to the NATO pilots. One of the reasons why NATO intervention from Kosovo to Libya has been acceptable over the last 12 years is the casualties have been on the enemy side, not on the NATO side. None of our planes have lost their pilots. If, however, that was to change, then of course perhaps the enthusiasm for intervention and the belief that it's something which only the other side takes casualties would begin to diminish. Equally, it may be, of course, that you can build a crisis out of this situation. You could say that the Syrians had acted aggressively, they'd attacked a Turkish plane in international waters, depending on where it actually came down and where it was hit. Allowing that it was hit at all, we still don't know exactly what's happened.